you're very much tuned in with your path and your music. Talk to me about keeping the noise out because especially in the space of hip hop, I feel like there's so much happening.
Yeah, that's a great question because it really is a challenge. Every 2, 3 days, there's like a new big thing, whether it's in hip hop or just in the culture and society, something everybody's talking about. And I do think that that has created a situation where you are actually much wiser to focus on you and your audience because there is so much happening. It really is, I think, the wise and practical thing to do to worry about speaking to your audience and connecting with your audience because the environment is so dizzying.
If you like the content you've been seeing on this channel, make sure to become a member for early access, exclusive videos, and much, much more. It's a great way to support the channel for just $5 a month. Hit the description link down below, go and check it out. Have you dreamt of starting YouTube or podcasting but don't know where to start? Or maybe you've started but aren't seeing the results you want? I'm now offering my audience one-on-one consultations for YouTube and podcast creation. These consultations cover the whole gamut, from launching your podcast, maintaining it, to finding your brand and actually reaching your audience. This is not a course or a one-size-fits-all. Together, we'll create a custom plan that actually works for your content. And if you're just a beginner, I'm offering my YouTube and podcast growth ebook down below in the description. If you want to take your content to the next level, check the links down below in the description. I can't wait to help you guys build. So the record, obviously dropping on October 31st, Start Anew. I've been listening to the project, and the one thing that strikes me, man, is the balance that you've managed to have on this project. It sounds very much like your classic work, and it's very reminiscent to classic hip hop in its roots, but it also has this new sort of feel that, when it all comes together, it almost gives like a cinematic feel to the production because it's telling a story in different ways.
So
I'm really fascinated by like how you put this together, man, because I understand it's a mix of many different sounds, not only from across the genre, but also from your career as well.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, what can I say to your question? Like, I feel like one thing I wanted to do with this project, like you said, is in one way return to kind of my comfort zone. I feel like I spent some albums experimenting. I'm a big fan of music, so I love to explore everything that I love. And I feel like I've done that quite a bit in the last maybe decade or so. But this album um, felt like I'd done that and scratched that itch, so to speak, in terms of like experimentation. And so what I wanted to do, what it felt kind of honest to do, was return back to what is, I think, my comfort zone musically. The sounds that really influenced me, the sounds that I grew up on, and as you mentioned, some of the sounds that characterize my earlier music. So, but I think the thing is, the thing I've discovered, I've been doing this for 20 years now, is that like you have to get back to that place of kind of comfort and familiarity in an honest way. You can't
Mm.
fake it. You can't try to just make some copy of yourself from the past. You have to go on a journey, like I've been saying, of experimenting and whatnot, and then and arrive back in home base, like in kind of an honest way. So it felt like that. At the same time, like you said, I did sample some experiments that I've done in the studio over the years, soul songs that I wrote and recorded, disco songs, kind of 70s ballads, like different experiments. Like I said, I love music, and part of why I got into it was to explore and to have all these different experiences in and outside of music. So yeah, I decided to take some of that stuff that I never put out, that was just in the vaults, and sample that.
Yeah.
Um, just as a way of giving myself a bit of a creative challenge. Um, and also just kind of felt meaningful to revisit some of those pieces as I'm sort of, just doing this thing that I do with albums of trying to process where I'm at.
Wow. So it sounds like there's a lot that went into it then. So you feel like it's important for an artist to start in a certain place, sort of go and experiment and get outside of that zone, but then you feel like it's important to come back to that zone eventually, naturally.
I think so. You know what?
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a parallel. So when writers and film writers, people that write novels and stuff, when they talk about stories, so I'll give the example of Star Wars,
Mhm.
Lucas. A lot of them have this idea that all stories follow the same shape.
Right.
And they're that shape that I just described to you. There's somebody that starts in a familiar place and then they want something, and so they go out in search of it, and it makes them move out of their comfort zone. And in that process of moving out of their comfort zone and going after something, they're changed in some way, and then they return. And
Yeah.
if you look at Star Wars, if you look at a lot of great stories, it's like it follows that shape. And I think artists go on the same journey. I think artists go on the same journey. You start out and you're influenced by what you're influenced by, and that really imprints on you. That's in your DNA. You know what I mean? I grew up on, for example, Lauryn Hill, Black Thought, Common, Biggie. It's like that's stamped on me. That is
Yeah.
what comes out of me naturally, you know. But then I go on this journey as an artist and also just on a human being of trying to understand who I am, trying to communicate my sense of who I am, where I come from, and my sense of the world. And that leads me to push my boundaries in terms of sound and in terms of flows and things. Um, but then you come back. You always come back. You always come
Full
back
circle.
full circle. So
Yeah.
sorry, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but
No,
yeah,
I love it.
I do think that's the journey artists should go on. I think listeners love hearing that too. I think
Yeah.
you love hearing an artist go reach for something, but then you also love hearing them just be themselves, you know?
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
that's so important, especially for that listener journey, like you're saying. So let me ask you this then. I mean, when it comes to what you're talking about now, it sounds like you're very much tuned in with your path and your music, which is something that I think a lot of artists struggle with. Obviously, 20 years in the game, it has to get easier, in that regard. But talk to me about keeping the noise out, because especially in the space of hip hop, I feel like there's so much happening at such a fast pace too. Like one day there's a new sound, the next day it's gone. How do you sort of keep the blinders on in a positive way to avoid all that outside noise?
Yeah, that's a great question because it really is a challenge. There's so much noise. Um, every 2 3 days there's like a new big thing, whether it's in hip hop or just in the culture and society, something everybody's talking about,
Yeah.
and so our attention just our heads just on a swivel going from one thing to the other thing. I do think that has created a situation where you are actually much wiser to focus on you and your audience because there is so much happening. It really is, I think, first of all, just the wise and practical thing to do, to worry about what you have to say and worry about what your audience, speaking to your audience and connecting with your audience, because the environment is so dizzying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's just a practical side of it where I actually think it's practically just wise to tune things out. But I also think, man, that's the hard work for artists. I always say the hard work is not making music. We love making music.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard, but no, that's not the hard work. The hard work is staying connected to who you are in such a dizzying, rapidly changing world, is to stay connected to who you are, to what you have to say, to what you have to offer, and not be frazzled.
Right. To
That's
stay
the
in
hard
tune.
work. That's the hard work.
Exactly. Yeah, because that hour on stage performing or that time in the studio, that's the as hard as it is, it's what you guys love to do.
That's what we love to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever hear artists complain about that.
It's
That's
true.
our that's what we get to do. That's what we love to do. The hard work is outside of the studio, out off of the stage, and it is just being healthy,
Yeah.
mentally, physically, being healthy so that you can offer something. You know what I mean?
For sure. How do you think that aspect has evolved in the past 20 years? Because, I mean, we're looking at a very short period of time with, again, a lot of changes. And I think one could even say the whole foundation of what it means to be an artist today has pretty much completely changed. I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I've watched it change. I've watched it change. So one thing I've seen change is how much the artist has to do now, you know? So I remember, for example, earlier albums I would put out where, okay, I would focus, I would make the music, and then, the record label I'm working with, they're in charge of marketing the music. That is what they do. And then over the last couple albums, realizing like, oh, actually, I need to be in half of these marketing meetings because I market the music.
Right.
If I'm not marketing the music, you know, their best efforts, the best efforts of my record label, it's not really going to work out because I need to be speaking directly to my audience in the newsletters, social media. So I think the amount of work and the range of work that falls on artists has increased.
For sure.
That is just a reality. You have to make the music. You know, again, to give another example, when I started out, you had to make music, maybe music videos.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to make music videos, daily stream of photos and short videos, you know, what we call content, these sorts of things. They're also part of it. So it's increased. The workload is increased, frankly. You know, I have experienced it. I can say that not in an angry old head way, but in a way of no. I've lived through it and I've watched my workload increase, you know,
Yeah.
in terms of the proportion of things that have to get done. It is what it is. I think fundamentally it's still the same in the sense that what you're trying to do is tell the story of what you're doing, like of what you
Right.
have created. It's
Yeah.
still the same. You know, before it just used to be, you know, you're trying to tell that in maybe a couple spaces, maybe the music video and then maybe press interviews. And now you have to tell the story of what you're saying, however people receive it.
Yeah.
Shorter form content, podcasts, like however it is, wherever people are, wherever the culture is, you have to be there telling the story of what you're doing. And so things have changed in that way, but fundamentally it's still the same. And that's helped me keep again healthy and well. You know, I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel like it's shameless self promotion. It's still promoting what I've created, what I feel I have to offer. You know, so it doesn't feel gross. It doesn't feel icky. It just feels like more than it used to be.
Yeah. You have to tell your story in many different ways and many different avenues just to stay in the conversation at this point.
That's it. You just have to. So, you know, and again, fundamentally, it's the same thing. So, let's say it was 20 years ago when you're marketing music, you want it to be in front of people a lot. Familiarity, you
Yeah.
know, that's why you wanted to get your song on the radio or on the video because familiarity is really uh it's really connected to liking something. If you think about your friendships, it's like your friends aren't necessarily the greatest people you've ever met. They are the people that are around you a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the reality. So um, it's still that fundamental challenge of you want to tell your story consistently. You want to put the story of what you're doing consistently in front of people because that's how it becomes part of their life. Like you said, part of the conversation becomes something that they're familiar with, something that they are comfortable with. Um, so it's still fundamentally the same thing. It's just you got to do it more. You got to do it more now. Yeah.
Yeah. In more different ways.
And in more different ways and in new ways that you have to learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ever changing,
Yep.
different ways. Now, when it comes to the actual space of hip hop, you know, when we are looking out at the general state of things, it seems like there's a hunger for that grassroots, you know, back to the basics, actual bars, style of hip hop, more so than there ever was before. Is that something that you're sensing? And what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that sort of shift?
absolutely. It's really fascinating, right? Because people will complain or lament about the state of things now with social media and everything is fractured and everything is short and everything is short attention spans. But one thing it has actually brought to the surface is um, raw, DIY, unfiltered, no pun intended, capturing of actual skill and talent.
Yeah.
You can't fake that. You can just turn on your phone, and if you can really rap or you can really play guitar, you can just turn on your phone and do your thing. And there's no hiding There's nobody can confuse that. Like it's compelling. It's cool. It's cool. So I think that's what's made it cool again, because in a landscape where you can watch, literally a million things a day, when someone does something well, really, really well, it stands out. So it's
Yeah.
almost like it's come full circle from when that's what mattered most to, maybe the marketing and the images mattered most. And then maybe it's capturing people's attention by any means necessary that mattered most. And now we're almost back all the way. I don't want to say we're back all the way around, but I do want to say there is a space now for just being real good.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so people see that. People see people that can really rap, and it is compelling. It's still amazing. Hip hop is amazing that way. If you look at every aspect of hip hop, breakdancing, DJs scratching, like people freestyling and battling, it's amazing to watch all the elements of hip hop. Like it's really cool. This whole culture is about excellence. You know what I mean? DJing elevated to the highest, most technically incredible, you know, dancing elevated to the most technically incredible. So it's still amazing to watch. I'll still see on my feed breakdancing videos. It's like, man, this is from 50 years ago, like the style,
Yeah.
but it's still so mesmerizing. And I think hip hop is like that too in terms of rapping. Black Thought had that moment maybe 10 years ago where he was freestyling on Flex for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Insane.
Insane. And then they were interviewing him all about it and stuff, and he was like, it's interesting because this is what I've been doing.
Right. The whole time.
This is what I've been doing the whole time, but now, because of the way media works, it's like, yeah, like people can watch it and it's very compelling. It's
Yeah.
compelling. Yeah.
And it's cool to see the younger people getting involved in that as well, because the one thing that really stood out to me is that there are people in pockets of hip hop that, bubbled up and they had their moment, especially, 2016, 17. But the one thing that people said that I think was dead on is this may be a great moment, but there's not longevity in this. These people won't be around in 10 years. And it's funny to see that even 3 years later, some of this stuff is completely fizzled out. So, I mean, when you look at the guys like a Black Thought or the guys in Griselda now, sort of carrying that torch, I think it's really inspiring to see like, okay, there's going to continue to be space for this as it continues to stay.
Yeah, no, it's dope. And I think that's where hip hop should go. Like if I think of rock music as a parallel, right? What happened with rock music is as it got older, there were these different pockets. There's punk rock, there's heavy metal, there is prog rock, there is more kind of folk rock, and then there will always be like classic rock. There
Yeah.
will always be guitar gods,
Yeah.
that. And so I like to imagine hip hop will go in that direction as well, where it can grow and it can evolve as it should, as it needs to.
Yeah.
But you always preserve the core. You always preserve, again, to use the rock parallel, like the blues, BB King will always be that guy, you
Yeah.
know, because you preserve that, and you preserve the, just the roots and the culture and the skills. And yeah, and like you said, it's cool to see younger generation being inspired by that as well, you
Yeah.
know, and not feeling like they have to hop on whatever trend is going on, but they can also, if they are inspired by the roots of hip hop and lyricism and all that sort of stuff, then they can follow that. There's a path, there's a lane, there is that aspect of the culture has been preserved, so they can go there if they want to. So
Exactly.
I love that. I love seeing all that.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal. Circling back real quick to the record, obviously Start Anew is going to be dropping October 31st. Was that an intentional decision, the Halloween drop? Because I know there's a lot of interesting themes on this project.
It wasn't really intentionally how. I mean, I wanted to release it this year. I wasn't tied to that, but it just felt nice because it is my 20th year making music, and so it felt nice to put out something this year.
Yeah.
And so, that's getting towards the end of, well, starting into November, December, where people kind of wind down. So I did want to put it out this year. So that is really why we landed on end of October. I'm not like a Halloween. There's nothing spooky about it or anything
Right.
like that. But yeah.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, in terms of the themes that are actually on this project, you're talking about life, you're talking about death. There's an element of hope and sort of enthusiasm for the future, but there's also sort of a cautious element, and a reflective element to the project as well. I mean, maybe if you could talk about mixing that balance and exploring these themes in different ways.
Yeah, so the inspiration for the album for me was really looking at our world. And so when you look at our world, I try to be hopeful, but of course it has to be a cautious optimism. Um, we are, I feel like, at a dangerous inflection point. There's hope, but we're in a serious situation, I think, where we do have to think about the path forward. And I think what I was trying to say with this album is I hope we can be brave on the path forward, because I think this moment requires courage. It requires trying something new. And that's really hard. It's really hard to leave what's familiar. Back to the start of this conversation, it's hard to leave what's familiar and go off and step into the unknown,
Right.
even if what's familiar isn't working.
Hmm.
So if I look at our world, it's like, I think a lot of us would assess it and say there's a lot that's not working. But it's still hard to abandon certain things.
It's a comfort zone in a twisted way.
It's a comfort zone in a twisted way, to it's like when people talk about being in a toxic relationship or something like that. It's like, well, why wouldn't you just leave a toxic relationship? Because it's weirdly comfortable. It's what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what it will be like if I leave. So um that's kind of the inspiration for the album, was kind of like, do we have the courage on a societal level, on a personal level? Because at the end of the day, it boils down to, again, it's a human challenge. We experience it in our own lives on the level of just relationships, or even on the level of work or mortality, whatever it is. But do we have the courage to step into the unknown? You know what I mean? To give an example of, let's say, the environment, and we see more fires and whatnot every summer. It's like, okay, this is a frightening situation. It requires something different, but it's scary. That's scary. Well, what do we do? We
Yeah.
have to do something we've never done before, and that's hard. So, is it in terms of the hope and the also cautious optimism? I was trying to strike that balance. I was trying to say we have what it takes, but what it takes is the best of us. It does take our best, our courage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So do you feel like you got to gain insight on these themes yourself through actually working it out and writing through it like this?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think I did, and I also get insight from these conversations about the album.
Yeah. Okay.
Is what I found as well. Um, when I was making the album, I was thinking a lot about the end of things, and can we accept that we're at the end of certain systems or certain ways of thinking that are no longer serving us. But then I realized, in having some conversations about the album, I'm also I think I was also writing about the start of the journey, not just the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this thing again, back to the beginning of our conversation, where you start somewhere familiar and then you got to leave it if you want something. You got to step out of the comfort zone, and that's where we're changed, and that's where we grow. So I think a lot of times when we think about our world, we think about the end. We're at like, it's scary. We might be at the end, but maybe in another way of thinking is like, we're at the beginning.
Right. Something
We're,
brand new.
we're at the beginning of something brand new, actually. And what we need to do is we need to step out. We need the story to start.
Right.
We need to have the courage to start the story.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a shirt right there. Have the courage to start the story. That's the new merch for the tour.
I'm saying it feels good, right? It feels encouraging, and it feels I don't know, maybe like something people need to hear right now.
Definitely, man. Well, I appreciate you putting it out there for people. I know they're going to like it. October 31st, the record is going to drop. Make sure to go and hit the links down below in the description to everybody who's watching and let Shad know that you heard him here on the program. And thank you so much for stopping by, man. I appreciate it. I'm loving the music, and I know people are going to receive it well.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you.